I read all these books. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now today I'm going to be doing a quick guide to Tessa Dare novels. Actually, I don't know how fast this guide will be because there's a lot of books to cover and she wrote 3 series with Avon Books, but I'm going to try to do my best and give you a quick short guide and also give you my initial thoughts and my feelings towards each book. What really happened was that during the Historical Romance Readathon hosted by me and Lacey from Laceybooklovers and Jessica from Peacelovebooksxo, I decided to read all the Tessa Dare novels that were on my shelf. And halfway through it, I was like, why not just finish all the series that Tessa Dare has ever published with Avon Books? So that's exactly what I did. The only books that I haven't read are the novellas that were included in the series that I will be talking about, which is the Spindle Cove series. I didn't get to read those ebooks yet, but I plan to read them in the future, and I would be more than happy to share my thoughts on those novellas as well. There are 3 novellas in that series, and I only read one of them prior to the readathon, and I really enjoyed them, so I have no issue with reading the 2 other novellas I'm missing, and I feel like I'll love them anyways. For this video, I'll be talking about all the series that she did write for Avon Romance. So she did have 2 other series that she wrote for a different publisher and imprint, but I'm not going to talk about those ones because I haven't read those ones obviously yet. So this guide is just to talk about all the books from Avon Books. I'll be starting off with the most recent series, going in down to her earliest series from Avon Books. So the most recent series that Tessa Dare is still currently working on and that is not completed is the Girl Meets Duke series. And the first book in the series actually starts off with the Duchess Deal, the Governess Game, and then we have the 3rd book that's most recently published from Tessa Dare called the Wallflower Wager. There's a 4th book that's coming out in later this year called The Bride Bet, and if you haven't watched my most anticipated historical romance reads for 2020 this year, you might have realized that The Bride Bet, which is book number 4 in the Girl Meets Duke series, is my most anticipated read, and I'm so excited to get my hands on that copy because I really do love this series. The series is a for sure win for a lot of the people who love a good, funny historical romance, and I love the series, and you can already tell that I'm going to recommend this series. So the Girl Meets Duke series is exactly what it sounds like. All our heroes are dukes and they come from a different range of backgrounds, whether they have childhoods or adulthoods that come from places that are less than ideal, or now that where they are stuck in different situations in their lives where they don't know what they're doing and handling. The girls meets the dukes and they usually help them out in some other way. And overall, I really do enjoy this series, and I would recommend this series to people who are just starting out with Tessa Dare, especially because this is her newest series, and you wouldn't feel like you're falling behind because there's only 3 books right now that you can quickly catch up to. So the first book that I want to talk about in the series is called The Duchess Deal, and The Duchess Deal follows 2 characters named Ash and Emma. And now Ash is a war-torn hero. He basically came back from the war, he's scarred and he's damaged, and he's a beast basically because he hides himself away in his manor and he doesn't want to talk to anybody, but what he really does need is an heir. So he decides to go through with his relationship and his engagement with this girl, but turns out the girl is completely freaked out by his face and she's rather would kill herself than to actually marry him because she doesn't want to be seen in society with someone as disfigured as he is. So she runs away, and then our female main character Emma is actually the dressmaker and the person that was responsible for making the wedding dress for his fiance that ran away. And Emma is stricken with a deal, and the deal is to marry him and she can have the wealth and the fortune to create her own business and to live a good and decent life, besides being a poor woman who is suffering and who is currently going through financial troubles. So this book really does follow the trope of marriage of convenience if anybody's interested in that. What I really enjoyed about this story is that he's willing to do a lot of the things, but he has a set ground number of rules, but she is also willing to do things and she is ready to bring what she has to the table and also give her rules and stipulations as well. She's not fearful of him and she always stands up to him. So I really like this really nice balance of power of relationship. You know, she never feels inferior to him and he always feels like that he's being a jerk and that he really needs to be more loving of himself and more loving of others. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars and I highly recommend this book to anyone who loves Beauty and the Beast retelling. The next book in the series follows two characters named Alexandra and Chase, and Alexandra is actually hired to be the governess of Chase's little two girls. So Chase isn't actually a father. It just so happened that his sibling or someone died and he was the next of kin, and he had to take care of these two little girls who are just not little ladies yet, and that they are very stubborn, they're very wild, and they make a lot of pranks and causes a lot of issues for Chase. And Chase was basically a bachelor. He would just drink, party, go to play poker games, and go have fun with the ladies and everything like that. So obviously having two little girls is cramping his style. So what he really wants is Alexandra to tame the two little girls for him so he can go back to the normal life that he used to live. And what happens is that Alexandra takes one look at the two little girls and realizes that they don't really need a governess. What they really need is someone to care about them and for someone to love them. So I would recommend this novel to people who love children in their novels because these two little girls are freaking hilarious, and I love this book so much, and it's so cute watching these two people fall in love while also taking two little girls and starting basically their whole family together, and it was adorable. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. So the last most recent published book from Tessa Dare in this series is The Wallflower Wager, and this book is an opposites attract novel because we have two characters named Gabriel and Penelope, and Gabriel is actually not a duke, but his last name is Duke, so good play on that. Gabriel grew up in the slums. He grew up in a neighborhood where he didn't have enough money to be fed, and he has grown himself into a businessman where he buys a lot of houses and he renovates them and flips them. He sets his eyes on a piece of property that he is willing to sell, and he is going to gain a huge profit for it. But then he discovers that the neighbor, Penelope, just so happens to have a barn and has a lot of animals running loose and around the place, causing a lot of chaos on the street that will for sure lower the property value of the property that he's going to sell. I mean, nobody really wants to buy a house next to someone who has like pigs and cows and like animals and ducks running around all over the place. So basically this book is filled with a lot of chaos. He makes a deal with Penelope that he will find a proper home for all these animals, and if he does, then she has to part ways with the animals so that he can sell the house. This book was interesting, but it wasn't my favorite. I'm going to have to be honest. I think I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars. It just didn't feel like a classic Tessa Dare novel to me. It just got too wild. The plot went all over the place and everything was chaos. But that was just my personal opinion. And if you do feel like that you like an opposites attract novel where things do go into a chaotic mess, then this book is definitely for you. For me personally, in my personal tastes, I didn't like this one as much. Now moving on to the next series that I want to talk about. This series is called Castles Ever After, and from now on, like, it basically plays on a pun. So her series Castles Ever After is obviously a pun on the popular saying of happily ever after, and this series features like around 4 girls who just so happens to inherit a castle, have a castle, or basically steal a castle, or have plot lines related to castles. And then in this series, the heroes also have animals. Like there's always like a particular animal in there that will grow into your heart and that you'll simply fall in love with. The animals kind of play a quirky role into the series as well, and the animals are very different and a wide range. Now, for example, one of the books had a lobster, another book had a lamb, and it was just crazy. It was wild, and I really enjoyed the series. I think overall this is my favorite series from Tessa Dare, and I would highly recommend you to read this series first. Overall ratings of these books, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So the first book in the series is called Romancing the Duke, and my cover is a little bit different from all the covers that everybody has. As you can tell, like the title is printed in black, which makes no sense because the original cover is printed in gold. But this could be obviously a printing issue. But this book follows 2 characters named Izzy and Ransom, and now Izzy is basically left destitute after her father dies, and she has no money and she has no ways of like making a living for herself and also having a house to live in. It's really just her luck when she receives a letter from a barrister that she basically inherited a castle from her great uncle, and she is willing to do anything. She's desperate. So she travels all the way and ventures out into this land where she has the castle, but only to realize that someone's already living in the castle and that castle may not belong to her. And so she meets this man named Ransom, and Ransom is our hero. He is living by himself. He's reclusive. He doesn't want to talk to anybody, and he also has a disability where he's actually kind of blind and he can't really see too much. And this is the story of Izzy and Ransom, and Izzy kind of takes on a secretarial role for Ransom and helps sorts out the papers to figure out who has been trying to sell Ransom's castle and who is actually out to get Ransom. So if you're a fan of a story with a little bit of intrigue, a lot of romance, and a lot of sexual attention, I definitely recommend you to read this book. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. So the next book in the series is Say Yes to the Marquez, and this book follows two characters named Cleo and Rafe. Now, Cleo is actually engaged to Raf's little brother, but the problem is that Cleo has been engaged to Raf's little brother for 8 years, and she's had enough. She's tired. She doesn't want to be engaged anymore, and at this point, she's just willing to live single and live a happy life without him. But Rafe is not willing to let this engagement go, and Rafe will do whatever it takes to convince Cleo to come back to his little brother so that his little brother can live a happy and gentle life with a lady and with a girl of good breeding. So what Rafe actually does is that he actually tries to plan the wedding for them, and he buys the flowers, he makes the cake, and also he tends to steal a little bit of the kisses, and he falls madly in love with her. So this book features a relationship that's pretty much a little bit forbidden and includes a little bit of angst, and it was fun, it was funny, and we got to learn the story about Cleo and her self-esteem towards her body and how her family treats her. So Cleo is described as a character that is curvier than a lot of the girls out there, and in order for her to look slim and for her to look like she is normal in society, her mother actually used to starve her and not let her eat so that she can lose weight. And Rafe is there to support her and reassure her that she is beautiful just the way that she is, and through that she learns that she is beautiful the way she is. So the story was very sweet and very beautiful, although sometimes I did find that it dragged on a bit, and I really wanted the story just to keep moving forward and keep going on. It felt like there wasn't that many events happening, but overall I really did enjoy the story, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This was also a book that I actually read during the readathon. So the next book in the series is When a Scot Ties the Knot, and I'm going to be honest with you, I actually was not looking forward to this book at all. There's a secret that I've been holding, and the secret is that I don't really like Highlanders. I don't really like Scottish heroes. I don't know, it just doesn't buy it for me. I don't really care for those kind of stories, so that's why this one was a book that I really just didn't want to read in the first place. But spoiler alert, I really enjoyed this book, and I actually gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Now, this book follows two characters named Madeline and Logan. Now, Logan is like the leader of his clan, like he is the captain, he is a war hero, he is brilliant at war fighting and everything. And what happens is Madeline is kind of a nerd. She is an outcast in society because she loves drawing animals, and she loves drawing like the bodies and shapes and bones and the anatomy of animals. And she already knows that she's going to be a spinster for life, but what she doesn't appreciate is that everybody trying to poke into her relationship status and trying to marry her off with someone random. So what she does is that she invents a hero, and she decides to write letters to this hero with correspondence, meaning she writes the responses from him as well, so that it looks like there is a two-way conversation, even though she's just writing to herself and then having a response mailed back to herself. And so far she thinks that she has fooled everyone into thinking that she actually has a relationship. So to her surprise, what happens is that she is called upon by a man, and that man just so happens to be the hero that she wrote letters to, because she didn't realize that she was writing letters to a fictional person, but realized that she perfectly described an actual man that was existing in the same life that she was. So he comes and he basically pretends to be her lover. So she's obviously very shocked, and she doesn't want to expose her secrets to her family. So she goes with him to get married, because he also threatens her that if he doesn't marry her and give him the piece of land that she owns with like the castle and everything, then he would expose all the letters that she has written to her and basically ruin her image. So this novel features a marriage of convenience. She wants to live in a normal life where she doesn't have to deal with man, and he wants to live a normal life with a land and a castle so that he can take care of his clan. What happens is that they fall in love, and it's steamy, it's hot, it's cute, it's lovely. I loved it so much. Logan is described to be a brute, like he's a man's man, but what happens is that he also has a sensitive side to him, and he also likes to read, which was really cute as well, because there are scenes in this novel where he was just shirtless and reading, and I was like, Tessa Dare did us a service for this book, so I highly recommend you to read this one. The next book in the series, and also the last book in the series, is Do You Want to Start a Scandal by Tessa Dare, and a little bit backstory with this novel is the same as the previous book in the series. I didn't feel like reading this. I saw this multiple times on Book Outlet, and whenever I read the synopsis, and I just didn't think that this would be a story that would really captivate me and that would make me fall in love with it. And so far, when I talked to a lot of my historical romance friends, they said the same thing, and they didn't think that they would like this novel simply because of the synopsis. So this novel follows Charlotte and Pierce. Pierce is actually Rafe's little brother, and Pierce was actually engaged to Cleo, but obviously that engagement fell through, and he is basically living the life of bachelorhood, and he is having fun with the ladies. That is until when Pierce and Charlotte are actually found in a room together in the middle of the night after someone has exclaimed that they have heard noises and that they were basically in a sexual relationship. But what really happened was that Pierce and Charlotte were just in a room with each other having a discussion when another couple walked into the room, and Pierce and Charlotte had to hide. They didn't want to be caught alone, and that couple that walked in and stumbled in into the dark, they actually had started engaging in a sexual activity that caused a lot of noises that people actually heard. And before Pierce and Charlotte could escape the room, people actually thought that they were having the sexual relationship. So this whole book features a mystery where they try to figure out who the couple was so that they can prove their innocence, that they're actually not engaged and that they are not entangled in a relationship. But what Charlotte doesn't know is that Pierce is infatuated with Charlotte, and Pierce would do whatever it takes to seduce Charlotte into a marriage, and Charlotte will do whatever it takes to get out of this marriage. So this novel definitely is a beautiful novel. I love this one so much. This was definitely my favorite novel from Tessa Dare. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. It was freaking hilarious. There are so many scenes in this novel that I just started cackling with laughter, and I loved it, and I highly recommend this one to you if you haven't read it already. So the next series that I want to talk about from Tessa Dare is her first series from Avon Romance, apparently according to Goodreads, and this series is called the Spindle Cove series. And the Spindle Cove series is also a pun on spinsters, which is a word that was used back then, or a word still used today, for females who are kind of over the age of 20, who doesn't seem like they have prospects to get married. They're deemed and labeled as spinsters. So this series follows a group of 4 girls who are labeled as spinsters and that are social outcasts from society, and they decide to live in an area called Spindle Cove, where they develop their skills, become strong career women, or just become strong women with the help and support of other females in the small town. And I love this series as well, although it's definitely not my favorite. There were some books in this series that I gave only a 3 out of 5 stars because I did find them a bit dry. But I will say that this being Tessa Dare's first series, you can really tell that she has grown into her writing as you read more of her recent works. You can tell that she has matured in her writing and how she develops her characters, or how she makes the story interesting, or how she adds a light sense of humor into her characters to make you laugh and to make you crave more of her romances. And definitely her sexual attention has increased immensely from the series and onwards. So the first book in the series follows Viktor and Susannah. Viktor is a soldier, and his whole entire life has been in the army. He has worked his career up to become a leader, but then he suffers an injury and he has a bum leg. So his leg is causing him a lot of pain and a lot of stress, and he can't really move as fast as he once did back in the army. He doesn't want to be left aside because he doesn't want to be deemed as someone who is useless to the army and useless to his country, because he wants to continue fighting for his country and protecting his country. He also deals with a lot of PTSD issues that were very heartwarming and very troubling for you to see and for you to read about this character. And then we have Susannah, who is the leader of the pack of the girls. She's the one that kind of assembled the group to live in an area of Spindle Cove. She is very strong, she is very independent, and she has grown to be this strong woman from her damaged childhood where she was very sick. She had to be taken care of by medical professionals that kept leeching her. So they put leeches on her body, and so she has become scarred along her arms and her hands. So she's very self-conscious of that. So this is a story about 2 people finding love in a place where they least expect it. I enjoyed this story. I thought it was slow in a lot of the parts of it, and I kind of just wanted the story to end as I kept reading, and I kind of just wanted the story to end at a lot of points because it didn't really seem there was anything adding to the plot. Of course, there's a lot of sexual tension between the 2 characters, but I needed a little bit more in order for me to be more invested into the story. Plus, the 2 characters, there wasn't really much that I connected with, so that's why I only gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. So the next book in the series is A Week to Be Wicked, and this story follows the 2 characters of Minerva and Colin. Now, Minerva is our scientist of the group. She's brilliant, she's very smart, she knows a lot about a lot of things, and she is highly invested in her education, which is something something that is looked down upon in society back then, because obviously men think that women can't be smart and women can't be well educated, but she is there to prove the point that women are the equal as men. So I really appreciated Minerva as a character, because what happens is that she actually lied about her gender in order to get into a society where she can advance herself and where she can explore the subject that she really loves. So when Minerva's little sister is betrothed to Colin, who is a famous rake, Minerva doesn't want that to happen because she wants to protect her little sister. So she tells Colin that if they spend a week together going up into a different area of the city where a local science competition is being held, then she can give the prize money to him and he can be well on his way without ruining her little sister. So they journey through to another part of the city in a carriage, and they're stuck in very close proximity with each other, and they are also fighting their growing attraction for each other because they're slowly falling in love with each other. I enjoyed this book. There was some parts, once again, where I found it a little bit slow and I was very unsure of it, and I was like, okay, like I don't really know if this is going to be the series for me, but I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars because the ending wrapped up very nicely and very sweet, and I loved the characters by the end of the story. So the next book in the series is A Lady by Midnight, and this is the book that was my favorite from this entire series. I really like this one. It featured a very rough character who didn't really speak any emotions. He was indifferent to a lot of things. His face was a stone wall, and you couldn't really tell what he was feeling, but when you could, you knew that he deeply cared about our female character. So this story follows Kate and Samuel is part of the army that has come into Spindle Cove alongside with Viktor, who is from the first book, and Samuel is coming from a troubled past as well. Like, he grew up in an orphanage. He had a childhood where he committed a lot of crimes and he got into trouble for it, but he has righted himself and he became a strict army man who only wants to follow the rules and serve the country, and then actually leave the country and go to America to start a new life. So he has no plans to settle down into Spindle Cove, and definitely no plans to give into his attraction to Kate, who just so happened to be a normal girl who is also a music teacher, who is also being mistreated by the person who is caring for her. So she is actually an orphan, and she came into care by like somebody else, and the person who's treating her gave no respect for her, treated her very poorly, would insult her about her looks, would insult her about her body, and would also literally assault her as well by like hitting her with sticks and things like that. And it was very hard to read because you can definitely tell that these two characters went through a lot through going through the army or going through an abusive household. It was a lot to read in and a lot to take, so there's a lot of angst towards it. And what happens is that a group of dukes and duchesses actually come for Kate and tell Kate that she's actually part of the family. And Samuel's very inquisitive about this because he's not trusting this group of family, so he decides to tell them that he's actually her betrothed and that he's the fiance, and that he won't leave the country until he sees that this family is not out to harm Kate. And so this book follows the trope of a fake marriage and a marriage of convenience as well, and I really, really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I think I just took a star off because there was still some parts that dragged a little bit, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. And if you're a fan of a hero that is dark and mysterious, definitely check this one out. So this is kind of like the last book in the series. What happens was that Do You Want to Start a Scandal, which was also mentioned in the Castles Ever After series, is actually a tie-in to this book. So it depends on like how you read it. So you can read it with like Castles Ever After, or you could read it with this series. So this is technically kind of the last book that I'm going to talk about, since I already talked about Do You Want to Start a Scandal, but this book is called Any Duchess Will Do. And this book follows 2 characters named Griffin and Pauline. Now, Griffin and Pauline come from 2 separate worlds. Pauline is actually a daughter of a farmer, and she is a working class member. She's actually one of the servers that serve beer and food in the local pub. And our Duke Griffin actually comes into town because his mom is prodding him, and his mom wants him to marry. So what better idea do they have but to go into a town called Spindle Cove, where there is a ton of females, for him to find his perfect bride. So he and his mother have a bet going on where he challenges his mother to change any girl of his choosing into a proper duchess, and the mother has an ego, and the mother's like, I can change anybody if I want to. So Griffin picks out Pauline, who just so happens to be the serving maid that served Griffin, and Pauline is shocked by this. This is kind of a game, and they're treating Pauline as like a toy and a piece in the game, so obviously she has some dignity to hold on to. But what happens is that Griffin offers her a large sum sum of money that can really help her situation financially and also help save her sister financially as well from their abusive father and their lackluster mother, who doesn't seem to care about their health and their well-being when their father is like literally hitting them and also being verbally abusive to them. So this story follows the trope of rags to riches, and while I liked the beginning because I liked how Pauline was so strong, so fierce, she was thinking of it all the same way. She was never unclear of the situation. She always knew that she was being used and that she was just a piece. She was detaching herself away from the situation so that her feelings weren't getting involved with Griffin. It became tiresome in the end because I didn't believe it when Pauline said that she loved him, because she grew such a disattachment from everyone that I was like, are you lying? Like, I can't really tell at this point anymore. And then Griffin has his own dark past where he chooses not to have children, where he chooses not to get engaged with anyone. And you find that secret as it comes along, the reason why he's like this. But at the same time, I didn't really care for it, and there was no emotional attachment to these characters. So this one, I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I still enjoyed the beginning enough to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. Otherwise, if the beginning wasn't that great, I'll probably give this one 2 out of 5 stars. So that is it for my guide to Tessa Dare and all the books I have read for the readathon. So in total, there's around 12 books I mentioned, and I read 7 of them during this readathon or a week prior to the readathon because I actually started a little bit early. I really enjoyed my experience reading Tessa Dare, and I have absolutely no regrets by reading all of her books. Maybe the only regret that I have is that now I have no Tessa Dare novels to read except for the 3 novellas, and I would have to wait for her next release, which is coming in like October 2020, so that's a long time away. But I'm sure I can find another author that I can binge on and that I can hopefully talk to you about. Let me know in the comments down below which book sparked your interest and which book that you want to start read. Maybe if you already read these books, let me know what your favorite series is or another author that you want me to try out and see for myself. Hopefully you guys also enjoyed the Historical Romance Readathon. Me, Lacey, and Jessica had a wonderful time hosting this event, and I feel like it was a grand success in terms of my standards. I didn't feel like a lot of people would join because historical romances aren't very popular on Bookstagram, so I didn't really know the feel of it. Plus, if you go on BookTube itself, you don't really see that many people talk about historical romances, but you can also see that a lot of people watch videos on historical romances. Hopefully you guys also enjoyed all my historical romance videos that I've put up in this past week. I know it was a lot of videos to watch and it might have been overwhelming for your subscription boxes, so taking this little break before I uploaded this Tessa Dare guide definitely would help people who are still catching up on the videos, and I'll definitely host another readathon with my other friends as well. But until next time, I'll see you guys again. Bye.